gather together after so many years where we had to do this virtually during the pandemic. This long-standing breakfast tradition offers us the opportunity to celebrate one another and really to see in the other the faces of our brother or our mother. We all know that spirit and faith have formed some of the most historically divisive fault lines in our civilization. But tapping into humanity's deepest sources of meaning has also been the key to unlocking and powering the most enduring, transformative, and paradigm-shifting movements for social justice throughout history. So why have so many struggles of these successful struggles been interfaith at their core? Because I think that whatever one calls it, whatever one calls source, it's often only through accessing something deeper and something outside of ourselves that we're able to have the internal resources and creative power and resilience that we need to break out of the prisons of our own minds and our external circumstances. And as sages, mystics of all traditions, not to mention physicists, the emerging physicists of the 21st century and artists throughout time have told us, when we go deep enough to that underlying source energy, we come to realize that all wells emerge from the same reservoir. So as we face we're facing so many existential crises these days, whether it's threats of war, conflict, climate destruction and extinction, worsening democracies, it's increasingly clear that underlying all of this is a more fundamental issue, which is a disconnection from ourselves, from one another, and from Mother Earth, or what I like to call soul, soil, and society. In these times, celebrating and really just honoring the many expressions of these deepest sources of wisdom can help us break out of the kind of, the collective crises we face and become sources of resilience for all of us. And I just want to say it's funny because as machines and artificial non-human intelligence are starting to outpace us, it's clear that we need to tap back into our deepest and humanity's deepest sources of experiential wisdom, because we're not going to make it with just our intelligence alone. As Einstein once said, you can't solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it. So let's take this opportunity this morning to celebrate and experience some deeper truths and timeless wells of humanity's wisdom and creativity, and to challenge ourselves to open up our own hearts to the many manifestations of the sublime as we begin to upgrade our collective operating system as a civilization. Today's breakfast is themed Creating Cultures of Resilience and Peace for our community and our world. And while that seems like a really big task, we all know that change begins, the really big change begins with the daily small acts. As Margaret Mead famously said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful and committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So this breakfast is special because it's initiated and put together by an entirely ad hoc group of volunteers of our community. It's one of those small groups of thoughtful, committed citizens. The back of your program includes the names of the program committee who tirelessly organized the event on behalf of our beloved city. So thank you for being here for this celebration of community. It should be an exciting morning.
In her book, This Your Flesh, Cole Arthur Riley says, solidarity is a group that stands together and would do so for even the weakest member. It is that community which resists the intoxicating lie of individualism. We live for ourselves and by ourselves. Solidarity dismisses self-preservation in favor of a new way to sense the injustice, need, or glory of any one part as the unflinching responsibility of the collective. Today, we gather as faith communities. Our gathering here is a sign of solidarity. We gather rooted in our diversity, committed to be co-creators of cultures that models resiliency as a central practice towards communities of human flourishing. communities grounded in wholeness, healing, integrity, and peace. Let us pray. Divine life, fountain of love, giver of wisdom, restorer of all creation, we thank you that in our diversity, your presence is found. In our differences, you give us strength, and in our struggle, you fill us with hope. We recognize that often we fail to acknowledge the divine spark in all creation. We fail to nurture bonds of charity. We fail to care for one another and to practice solidarity with our neighbor. Divine life, give us an imagination for the common good, for human flourishing, and for unity in diversity. Help us to lead our communities into recovery, mutual care, life-giving relationships, and a healthier future. Empower us as we come together and rehearse a future where all creation lives into the fullness of love made flesh. Amen.
Good morning. It is gonna make me cry before I start talking. It is wonderful to be here with all of you and so many leaders and visionaries, contributors in this room. I want to give a special thanks to my colleagues in the city and county who are here with us this morning. I know that we have Councilwoman Sandra Washington and Council members Tom Beckius and Richard McGinnis and Councilwoman Michelle Suarez and County Board Member Krista Yoakum. Could you all please stand briefly and let us salute you as well for your service? And Benny Show. And welcome to the 39th Annual Mayor's Interfaith Prayer Breakfast. I've been looking forward to this gathering for 4 years. I know that you've persevered and put this on virtually, but this is my very first time getting to be in person with you during my first term as mayor, and it's all the more sweet for the wait we've endured to be back together. Thank you for persevering with your video messages and song that provided so much solace during extraordinary times, but there's nothing as sweet as being together, so thank you. This is an incredible gathering that our diverse faith and spiritual traditions come together. I think it says so much about our community and our unity in community. So it is truly a pleasure, and I appreciate your amazing resilience and love for Lincoln and our chance to celebrate both this morning. This opportunity afforded us this morning is thanks to some particularly dedicated and talented community members, and heartfelt thanks go to the chair of this year's breakfast, Darcy Blosser, and to the members of the all-volunteer committee. Can we please give them a round of applause? I'd also like to recognize the special role of Prita Bansal, who, in addition to serving on the breakfast committee, has repeatedly been there for me and for our city during my first term, freely giving her wise counsel and demonstrating through words and deeds that to create transformed societies, we must become transformed individuals. And thank you for your love and light, Prita. You have been a shining light illuminating how we can come together, how we can bridge and connect for the collective good. And I have Prita to thank for first connecting me to her niece, Alyssa Martin, who served with me and who I also want to thank for her role in this annual event. Prita also connected us to this year's illustrious keynote speaker, Jerry White, whom we are so proud to welcome and to host in Lincoln. Creating cultures of resilience and peace for our community and for the world is the theme of this year's breakfast, as Prita shared. And as we consider this theme and this calling, really, we could not ask for a better emissary than Jerry White. Author, diplomat, humanitarian activist, and executive director of the United Religions Initiative, a global interfaith network, Mr. White's work has led to 3 major international treaties, his receipt of the 1997 Nobel Peace Prize, and thousands of war victims' spirits restored and renewed. In his book, I Will Not Be Broken, Mr. White writes that no one survives alone. No one survives alone. This rings so true, and one of the things that makes me so proud of our community is that here in Lincoln, we recognize that no one truly thrives alone either. Our residents help each other through acts of generosity, as we witness our annual Give to Lincoln Day, which has raised nearly $50 million to support local nonprofits. And Barb Bartle, who helped start that with her team at the Lincoln Community Foundation, is here with us. And please give the Lincoln Community Foundation folks a round of applause. Our residents help each other thrive through acts of compassion, which help make Lincoln one of the safest communities in the country during the pandemic. And our residents help each other thrive through acts of inclusion, which have helped resettle 30,000 immigrants and refugees who today proudly call Lincoln home. By working to ensure everyone in Lincoln experiences a true sense of belonging and feels included here in our wonderful city, we contribute to building a culture of peace and resilience. This work is important and ongoing. We approach this work with renewed vigor as we open doors and our hearts to our newest community members who have fled the violence in Ukraine for the peace of Lincoln. In the past year, our community has welcomed hundreds of individuals and families from Ukraine. And to support our new Ukrainian friends and neighbors as they rebuild their lives in our new home, our teams at the Urban Development Department and Lincoln-Lancaster County Health Departments have collaborated to help provide access to health care and housing assistance. I understand that Health Department Director Pat Lopez may be here this morning, and if she is, even if she isn't, let's give her a round of applause. Pat Lopez. Our city team's ability to serve our new Ukrainian friends and neighbors with excellence has a lot to do with an amazing collaboration with a gentleman named Oleg Stepanuk. Oleg came to Nebraska from Ukraine in the 1990s. And today he owns a trucking company. He serves as an associate pastor with the House of Prayer Church in North Lincoln. And he has been influential in forming the partnership between our City Hall teams, resettlement agencies, community organizations, and his church. And I understand Oleg couldn't be here with us today, but his colleague Serge is here. So Serge, can you please stand and wave so we can recognize you and your team? In putting so many of his countrymen and countrywomen on his shoulders on their path to a new life in Lincoln, Oleg reminds us that strengthening the fabric of peace and building the wells of resilience in our community, those are not things that we delegate to someone else. They are missions whose fulfillment depend upon each of us. When it comes to building the cultures of peace in our community, all the pieces matter. From the police and firefighters who keep our communities safe and healthy, to medical professionals and organizations like Centerpoint that work to empower people through treatment and rehabilitation, to the volunteers who provide companionship and support through our NeighborLink program, to the advocacy work of Jerry White, to the transformational work that PRETA undertakes and advances through Service Space, to the everyday heroism of our residents like Oleg and Serge. Creating cultures of resilience and peace is something to which we all must and do contribute. Thank you to all of you for your role as peace builders and community builders here. Our city, our state, our nation, and our world need you. We need you helping us to survive and thrive, never alone, but together, always. Thank you.
Good morning, friends. I wanted to say a few words about Hinduism, which is one of the oldest religions of the world, with origins primarily in India, but is practiced all across the world. Other prominent religions, including Buddhism, Sikhism, and Jainism, also trace their roots to Hinduism, which is a polytheistic religion with an extensive pantheon of gods that likely emerged from the belief that all living beings are expressions of the divine. As such, the religion lays emphasis on values of connectedness and peaceful coexistence with one's surroundings and the larger community. The many rituals and traditions of Hinduism are practiced somewhat differently, sometimes very differently from one region to another, which reflects an innate emphasis on diversity of practices, tolerance of this diversity, and the value of mutual acceptance. A key tenet of the religion is ahimsa, or nonviolence, towards all creatures, which promotes social harmony and peace. And Hinduism also stresses detachment from material temptations and the importance of meditating, both of which can inspire resilience in difficult circumstances. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Harun Al-Haider. I'm representing the Yazidi community here today. I would like to say some verses in my own language, and then I can translate into English, which really represent resilience, peace, and harmony within this world of ours. Patshemin Dunya Cheker. So, my Almighty, my God, created the world. Bahad, who said, Reku Peker, has put in order and social order in this world. Ben Adam Teda Khaneker. It means the humanity was flourished in this world. Patshemin Rabbi Samada. Rabbi Isa Musa Muhammada Hamuka Jera Sujudata. So this verse, it really talks about the diversity of religion in our world and how we all were created in this world to connect, to respect each other, and to really show the beautiful diversity of our different faiths and different background that we have in this world that we can cherish and treasure. Chid dunya ka rangina, teda tiji qawm umillatu dina. Here it goes. What a beautiful world. It's enriching with different people, different nations, and different worlds. हर मिलत की الفي دنياي والميفانا ودجارك وقتش كاسا في دنياي هزار سالي للدنيبي بزيرو مال الدنيا خنيبي دي هر جارك ميفانا غوريبي. So this verse specifically talks about why we are here as a humans. It doesn't matter if you're rich, it doesn't matter if you are powerful, it doesn't matter how much wealth we have in this world, and how gold, because it goes by the old times. There will be a time that you will taste the water of death. You will be leaving from this world. And what you can keep is your goodness, good heart. If what you keep, what is going to be left in this world is how much of a difference did you make in somebody else's life which was different than you or similar to you, or you didn't even know that person. In the Yazidi religion, we definitely been through a lot in our life, in our history. But there wasn't a second that we lost hope for peace, that we lost hope for resilience, that we lost hope for love of each other. There's always the stories of resilience in our culture where pain has been transformed into love, where pain and oppression has been transformed into moments of change where we can get together and empathize with each other's story. I really appreciate the time being here today and talking about the Yazidi community, and I really appreciate inviting me to this wonderful event. And it's such a pleasure to be here to really express some verses in my own language that represent the beauty of diversity here in Lincoln, Nebraska. So I really appreciate this time, and I really appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Nazim Khan, Executive Chef at Bryan Medical Center. So it doesn't matter where you born, what country born, and what place you born. Islamic, as a Muslim, Islamic greetings start with Assalamu alaikum. So that means is peace be unto you. So when we grow up as a kid, every country, so we start with that Arabic language to say Assalamu alaikum. So we are greeting everybody with the peace, right? So peace is the key word. So it doesn't matter what religion you belongs to, but if the peace is become a key word and then we all bite into it, then worlds become a beautiful place to live. So every religion has the common goal about that peace. So I think we all need to work together towards that. So I'm going to recite from Holy Quran, just one small surah. So that is all about, you helping your neighbors and other things. And this is the first part of the Quran. It's a very small surah. I'm going to recite that. And let's work together, help each other. Let's check on neighbors. Let's see what they're doing. And as a Lincoln community, we all can work together for a common goal, and that is peace and diversity. And, when we learn from each other, that's a huge things for us to grow as a beautiful humankind. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahmanir Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in Ihdinas siratal mustaqim siratal ladzina an'amta alaihim ghairil maghdubi alaihim waladdallin. Amin. So Amin to all, for everybody. Let's live together peacefully and work together as a one nation. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you to Nazim, who just spoke on behalf of the Muslim community. And we say in Hebrew, by the way, Shalom Aleichem. Salam Aleikum, Shalom Aleichem. All Semitic tongues are very similar in their stems and roots. And yes, peace to all. So I'd like to share a Hebrew blessing that contains only 15 words in Hebrew. Probably the oldest liturgical expression that most of us may know. I know that a lot of my colleagues in the Christian churches especially like to convey it, and it's a very famous prayer that appears in the book of Numbers, and it was originally kind of expressing the thoughts that in the Jewish religion of old, the Hebraic tradition, was confronting the background of magicians and sorcerers and priests and different pagan leaders. And it is a blessing that doesn't come from individuals, but comes from God. In the book of Numbers, on chapter 6, it says in Hebrew, Yevarechecha Adonai ve'ishmerecha, Yair Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom, which in Hebrew, translated into English, many of you may have heard it, known as the priestly blessing, Birkat Kohanim, and it says, may God bless you and protect you. May God deal kindly and graciously with you. And may God bestow God's favor upon you and grant you peace, the word shalom. In Jewish tradition, these 3 verses, 15 words altogether in Hebrew, correspond to 3 areas. The first one, may God bless you and protect you, Yevarechecha ve'yishmerecha. Our teachers express that it refers to material well-being. We ask God to bless us with well-being, to be able to have a livelihood, to provide, to put food on the table. And then we also ask God to protect us from destruction, protect us from illness or whoever tries to harm us, so that we can grow with health and well-being. As without our material needs and food on the table, how can we engage in spiritual pursuits? The second verse of this prayer, Yair Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka, may God deal kindly with you and graciously with you, refers, according to Jewish teachers, to intellect and knowledge, education. We ask God, at least according to some of those more literal translations from the Hebrew to the English, you may read that it says, may God make God's face shine upon us and be gracious unto us. What we are asking actually is, God, please instill in us the light of knowledge and wisdom so that we can conduct ourselves correctly. And then the third one, the third verse, when it says, Isa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom, we ask God to bestow God's favor upon us and grant us shalom, grant us peace, is somehow a request for spiritual and mental well-being, receiving the divine blessing of wholeness and a life of peace, living without fear. You see, in Hebrew, the word shalom makes also the meaning of being whole. Where there is peace, there is wholeness. And we are asking to be able to be whole, not to be broken, not to be attacked, not to have fear, and to indeed have the strength to always overcome whatever challenges come our way. So this 3-verse blessing is indeed a blessing that conveys more than just a ritualistic expression, but one that hopefully we'll all understand as something that deals with so many aspects of life. And a similar version to this blessing was found in the Dead Sea area in the land of Israel, but with some different nuances. And the version that was found says something like this: may God bless us all with all that is good and keep us from all that is evil. May God enlighten and illuminate our hearts with real insights into the meaningful things of life and grace us with the knowledge of eternal values and teachings. May God lift up his gracious countenance towards us and grant us everlasting shalom, perpetually enduring peace and wholeness. So friends, if we were to put it in very simple English, basically what we are asking from God is, God, make us feel safe. Make sure that we feel cared for. May we be able to recover when we are down. May we feel at ease. May we feel happy. May we have the strength to move on from challenges that come our way. And may we all feel peaceful and act peacefully. Thank you.
We're so happy to welcome to Lincoln Jerry White as our keynote speaker. In 1984, Jerry lost his lower right leg while hiking in an unmarked minefield in Israel with a couple college buddies. He worked closely. He went on to transmute that tragedy into a source of incredible resilience and power. He worked closely with the late Diana, Princess of Wales, on an international treaty to ban landmines, and was part of a coalition of hundreds of organizations in more than 60 countries who share the 1997 Nobel Peace Prize that was awarded to the international campaign to ban landmines. Jerry wrote about his experience in helping thousands of war victims build resilience in his book, Getting Up While Life Knocks You Down. More recently, he co-authored Religicide, Confronting the Roots of Anti-Religious Violence, which just came out. Jerry currently serves as executive director of the United Religions Initiative, which is the largest global grassroots interfaith peacemaking organization in the world. And I have the pleasure to work with him in that capacity as the global board chair of that organization. Jerry is an author, diplomat, and humanitarian activist known for leading high-impact campaigns, 3 of which have led to international treaties. He studied religion at Brown University, theology at Cambridge University, and business at the University of Michigan. He has an honorary degree from the Mount Sinai School of Medicine, and he teaches religion, violence, and strategy as a professor of practice at the University of Virginia. And he lives in the Washington, D.C. area with his wife, Kelly, and 4 children, and no grandchildren as of yet, as we learned. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you so much, Frida, and Madam Mayor, and friends and organizers of this beautiful breakfast. It's so great to be here with you in Lincoln. And yeah, it sounded like my mother wrote that introduction. And I just came from my mother from Boulder, Colorado. She's in memory care. Many of us are caring for our elders and each other. And she said before she lost her memory, she said, Jerry, I am a Judeo-Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, feminist. And I would like my funeral to reflect that. So I think she'd feel very much at home here with you all interfaith friends and journeymen and women. So thank you for receiving me. Today I'm just going to tell you a little bit more detail about the personal story. How did a Irish Catholic boy from Boston end up at an interfaith breakfast in Lincoln? So I was raised outside Boston in a small town in Cohasset, Massachusetts, on the coast. Just about 6,000 people. Very white, very preppy, very Christian, and therefore very boring, with all due respect to my hometown. And very beautiful. So that was a wonderful upbringing. I ended up going to Brown University, as you heard, and I became the first non-Jew to graduate with a degree in Judaic studies. So how'd that happen? Well, in my freshman dorm, I was the sort of the doofus Irish Catholic boy who didn't know much. I didn't know what apartheid was. I didn't know what the Arab-Israeli conflict was, or the PLO. I didn't know that Johnny Carson, I think, was born in Nebraska. I didn't know that Gerald Ford, I think, is from, there's a lot I didn't know on my freshman year. But in my dorm hallway, there was 2 Jewish students, 2 Hindu, 2 black, 1 atheist, and maybe a Protestant. So I thought this was time to learn fast. So I went trotted all over to understand, what does it mean that Jesus was Jewish? I really had no reference. There was no synagogue, no mosque, nothing in my hometown. As I said, there was too much diversity. So I was rather ignorant and afraid to ask, what does it mean that Jesus is Jewish? And so then I studied under Rabbi Jacob Neusner, who wrote more books than anyone in America, 1,000 books before he died. And he was the one who got me to Israel to study Hebrew. He said, Jerry, first of all, God does not speak Gaelic, or Latin, or Greek. If you're serious, you go to the land, go to Jerusalem. And so I went to Hebrew University for my junior year abroad. And that led me to just being a kid in a candy store, on a pilgrimage, walking in the footsteps of the prophets, loving every step, until that fateful day. And I think that fateful day, that's 39 years ago. I think the month I went camping in a minefield was the month you had your first prayer breakfast, Interfaith prayer breakfast here in Lincoln. It's been about 39 years. So you guys were having some fun. I go camping with 2 friends in the Golan Heights in the north. We're having a wonderful time. I think I'm happier than ever. I might have even been humming a hymn. It is well with my soul. And suddenly, I had no idea what a landmine was. I thought it was a terrorist attack. That's what we had been told. A Katyusha rocket, something like landing at my feet. So I'm flipped over and blown up. And it's silent. There's no other attack. And my 2 friends, David and Fritz, yell at me not to move. It was dawning on them that we had camped in an unmarked minefield, and we didn't know how far it extended or how to get out. So the good news is one of my friends learned how to tie a tourniquet that day. He actually tried to carry me out, and I'm not a small guy, so they're bringing me down a hillside. We're walking on rocks and piles of rocks to avoid any grassy knoll where there may be more minefields. And they drop me. Boom. Not once, not twice, 3 times. Like, what type of friend is literally dropping you in a minefield like 3 times? There was some resentment in these conditions. But we got out alive, and I spent 6 months in a hospital in Israel. Even though my father was president of a hospital in Boston. They wanted to bring me home, medevac me, have the best care, of course, Boston. The best care, private room. Their poor boy needs attention. And I said no. It happened here in Israel. I have a joke that, in fact, like, if you're gonna step on a landmine, I recommend you do it in Israel, because it has some of the best trauma care in the world. And so I knew I had that, but I had more. I had the fellowship of suffering, of people, soldiers, people missing their arms, their legs, their eyes, from war, from accidents. They were my roommates. It wasn't the time to be alone. As the mayor said, no one survives alone, no one succeeds alone, and no one, of course, flourishes or thrives alone. It's a social sport, all of us together. So, fast forward about 10 years after that experience, the landmine campaign began. And I was working on nuclear non-proliferation, and a buddy came to me who said, Jerry, you're tracking the wrong weapon of mass destruction. Landmines have killed more people than nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons combined. So with your personal experience stepping on a landmine, your professional experience, 10 years in arms control and security, why don't we get involved in this nascent campaign we're starting? And that was the International Campaign to Ban Landmines. And we became the ones who organized the survivors around the world, turning an issue about security landmines where our country and all of NATO and the rest of the world said, no, we love landmines. They're cheap, they're force multipliers, you're never going to ban them. And I just want to say that, like, much of our work of hope begins at no. It's not going to happen. Dream on. And that's where I think my sort of 5th of 6 siblings in a Catholic family, that competition kicks in. And said, if you say no, we want to prove you that hope does win over 72 Yazidi genocides. Hope does win over the Holocaust. Hope does win for us in this room as we're facing religiously motivated violence growing at a faster rate than ever before around the world. The fastest type of violence spreading, affecting tens of millions of people. It's not religious, but it's religion related. Meaning politics can be religified, or religion can be politicized, or we can weaponize scripture against our neighbors through hate speech, spread it real fast online. So I wanted to sort of leave you with a couple of things. One is, how do we build collective resilience. What did I learn from survivors all around the world, war victims, in 20, 30 different countries? So the recipe for resilience, you'll get it for free. Number one, face facts. This awful thing has happened. I can't turn back the clock. My leg is not going to grow back. I'm not a starfish. My hair is not going to grow back. Face facts. And there are emotions around that too, like this sucks. I'm in pain. I'm depressed. Do I want to live? So emotions are facts and signals that are not to be suppressed. The world has tough incidents. So how many of you have a facts to face? You know, a day in your life, a year in your life, where things are never the same again. So this little aside there on Princess Diana front, on her last humanitarian mission in Bosnia, I was taken around to meet families of survivors who had been blown up from the war and from landmines. And after a particular awful or moving visit with one family, where the young man had gone fishing after the war, reeled in a landmine on a sunny Saturday that exploded on him and killed him, leaving a widow and 2 young children, aged 2 and 4. So after that visit, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. And the Princess of Wales got back into our little minivan, and she was silent for like 20 minutes. And then she says, you know what? Every survivor, every landmine victim you introduced me to, Jerry, tells me their date. Like on April 12th, 1984. Ken Rutherford, my colleague, says he's on December 16th, 1993. And then the princess says, you know, I think I'm July 29th, 1981. The day she married Prince Charles. And then she burst out laughing with that irreverent sense of humor. And I thought, wow, talk about brilliant. Just like, she didn't have a PhD in psychology, but she said, trauma basically is a before and after moment where your life is not the same. So we think about each of us in the room. How many of us, raise your hand, do you have a date, a year, a loss of a loved one, a cancer diagnosis? I mean, if you have a pulse in the room, I think you're being shy, but raise your hand. I'm going to make the people who don't raise their hand like come up here. We'll throw some tomatoes. You're born, you die, and you have lots of dates in between that are beautiful. Even the Princess of Wales, she's saying her wedding date was a blessed trauma in the end. So number one, face facts. Number two, we learn to choose life. That's the question of hope, that I'm more than my body. This is where faith and religion have a competitive advantage. Spirituality. That we have meaning, we have belonging together. I mean, for me, I joke that if you have a fake leg, you also have a phantom foot. So I feel the foot I don't have more vividly than the one I do. It's sort of like tired and overused. So to know that you're an energy being and more than your body is a competitive advantage of belief and faith. Or just calling it hope. That you choose life, step number two. Together we choose life through COVID, after COVID. And step number three is reach out. Again, no one survives alone, we need each other. So this happened to me, I was in the hospital, and this guy comes by my hospital bed, and he's walking, he's wearing blue jeans, and he goes, I stepped on a landmine too in Lebanon. Can you tell which leg it was? And he had a really good gait, better than mine, and I couldn't guess. Because that's my point, the problem is not down there. The problem is up here and in here. And then he says, by the way, you have your knee. Yeah, it just makes a big difference. Can you still have children? I have 4, so you can relax. He goes, what you have is a nose cold. You'll get over it. Ooh, tough Israeli love. I don't remember his name, I never met him again. I'm glad, but I thought if that jerk can do it, I can. So the there's something about reaching out. He reached out to me, and through peer support and interfaith work, we reach out to each other to survive and thrive and flourish together, to recover and heal. So first step, face facts. Second step, choose life. Third, reach out. That's all right. Tell I was a professor checking. Fourth step is get moving. You know, we say, one of my mentors says, like, Gary, overwhelm is a story we tell ourselves. We're overwhelmed. It's also overwhelming. We're in anxiety, psychosis, students, youth, depression, anxiety. And I'm not really making fun of it. I'm saying this is a collective crisis. Anxiety over what? Depression over what? Mental health issues that are seeping nationwide and globally. So get moving. One of the quickest ways out of overwhelm is to be in action, to get in service, to do something. I remember the first time again back in that hospital room when I was taken after being like 3 weeks like bedridden, and the first time getting in a wheelchair. I was exhausted, a lot of weight, a lot of pain, a lot of surgeries, but this was my first day to go down to the cafeteria, get a hard-boiled egg and some mozzarella during Passover. And the nurse got me there. It was enough just to learn how to get in a wheelchair. And I expected this lovely Russian Israeli nurse to like push me, get out to the cafeteria, have my date, it's all good. And then she looks at me and laughs and says, if you want to move, push. Again, not a lot of coddling here. Push, move. Get moving, do something, be in action. We're meant to move our bodies, our spirits. Face facts, choose life, reach out, get moving, and number 5, last one, special sauce is give back. Generosity, like food, sex, sleep, and giving. Get our dopamine, serotonin levels up. So we just ate, we just slept, we don't see a lot of sex. You all can give to URI or to each other or to your community. Give in small and big ways. And that was the secret sauce in interviewing like over 10,000 war victims around the world. But those who were givers accelerated their resilience and their recovery. They may have been missing their arms and legs, and in a displaced or a refugee home. Why are they smiling? How did they avoid victimhood? What's their secret sauce? And it was in all of the above, but particularly in giving. And so then again, the altruism that comes to our faith and from our ethics and from our community in Lincoln and everywhere, giving. What about like giving kindness? Giving thanks to our public servants. I don't care what party. Do you know how hard it is to do these jobs? I only worked 3 years in government at the State Department. Peter worked many more. It's exhausting. Let's bring back the old-fashioned thank you note. Or at least gratitude for those of us who are trying to stay in those trenches, and it's not easy, as the mayor and all of you know. So that's it. Face facts after me. Face facts. Choose life. Reach out. Get moving, damn it. And give back. So then I'll just sort of segue from here's this Irish Catholic boy on a pilgrimage, and then travels the world meeting all these people of light in all different faiths. So it turns out after years of meeting people outside my own comfort zone, in war zones around the world, I sort of became polyamorous when it comes to spirituality and religion. That I learned something from each of you, each soul, each religion, each spirituality, each atheism. So learn, be curious. Those are the hallmarks and the science of spirituality, where we counter anxiety, depression, addiction, because we are wired for curiosity and giving, altruism, community, making meaning, all these wonderful things that are part of our collective resilience. So then I get all the way over to this new job that Prita dragged me into. So I blame Lincoln, Nebraska for the current state of affairs in the world. Or, as I said, the other V word, not just victim. How do we promote a victim-free world through our resilience? And how do we actually achieve a violence-free world? And so as the new executive director of the United Religions Initiative, I love the mission, because they have a hint of what to do. Number one, we're to promote daily, enduring, interfaith cooperation. Be in action together in community service across faiths. If you want to form a cooperation council or circle, just get 3 faiths, 7 people, and go fix the potholes. Like community service together across the aisle, across partisanship, across faiths. Number one. The second part of the mission, huge, to end religiously motivated violence, anti-religious violence, religion-related violence. Like I said, the fastest growing type of violence. I call it religicide. Tens of millions of people, like we saw that in the Holocaust. But we're seeing it now with the Uyghurs in China, Tibetans in China, Yazidis in Iraq, Rohingya in Myanmar, Coptics in Egypt. And a lot of it, these countries learned from the United States, I hate to say. One of our original sins beyond slavery was religicide of Native Americans and indigenous cultures. And what we did in fast and slow ways over hundreds of years, we're seeing other countries mimic with impunity. Whew, that's a big, big task. And I think we're up to it. So I think there are ways to end violence, but you have to have hope. And the new way, I'll just leave this idea with you, is that violence is not about bad people. Although we think it is, right? We need to punish them, put them in jail, find them, criminals, get them. The other. It's about bad behavior. And violence acts like an epidemic. We all are now familiar with COVID. Violence is contagious. It's a behavior that's contagious that spreads like a disease, and therefore can be interrupted, detected, contained through a health approach to violence. So with bringing in the new science of violence, I believe we can make a dent in really measurably reducing violence online against what are called facticide, against truth, hate speech, all of that stuff, lies in the news, violence against nature, Mother Nature, I call that ecocide, and violence against women, femicide. We're seeing that growing around the world, genocide. So religicide has those markers, but the good news, even though this is a breakfast and it sounds so heavy, and I apologize for bringing in all these D words of victimhood, violence, there's hope. Because of you in the room, because of Interfaith, because it's a social game, because that's how we take care of ourselves, and you role model that in Lincoln and in Nebraska, super important that the decency of your state holds for the country. So let's do that together. Let's interrupt violence and hate speech, and not just be bystanders, and do more than pray. I love prayer, and the blessings, weren't they amazing? I feel them go into my spirit, into my heart, so we are blessed by each other. And let's be in action, in interfaith action, so we can really celebrate hope together. And with that, I'll answer a question unless I run out of time. But I just want to say thank you for having me and listening to my own pilgrimage. I hope it was instructive in some way.
What wonderful words we've heard this morning, and what a call to action we've also heard. As we conclude our time together today, I want to share with you words from Ron Hull, whose life we celebrated last week. Many of you know Ron as the founder of Nebraska Public Television, and that would be an accurate description. He also established a public television network in Vietnam in 1966, in the midst of the Vietnam War. And these words, which he wrote from a hotel in Saigon with bombs detonating within his hearing, are a call and a benediction for each of us. He wrote, "I pray for strength and understanding and compassion every day, not compassion for myself, but that I can be of some little good, recognize the many daily needs of those around me, and contribute in a small way to the general good." May we go forth from this time together this morning and into our community with strength and understanding and compassion for others, recognizing the daily needs of those around us, and contribute in a small way to the general good. May it be so. Amen.